And hello YouTube, this is Thomas Judge, back once again with another instalment of my Ultimate New 52 Reading Guide video series. To provide a bit of background here, I have over the last few years read the entire DC New 52. That meant reading 3,646 single issues. I've used that experience to build the internet's most comprehensive map and infographic covering the whole DC New 52 from start to finish. And this series is going to be a series of deep dives into that map bit by bit, slowly and carefully going through every single part of it and to give you guys the information that I've learned. Today's video is video 5.3, The Bat Family Continued. Before we go any further, I will stress that even if you think you know what the New 52 is, and even if you only want to read one specific character or series like Batman, you still need to watch the introduction video to the series, video 0.0. That's going to cover a lot of the broad concepts and principles that underlie the design of this guide. I'm not going to re-explain them here. So I will be mentioning things like the convergence line and type P readers and so on. If you find that confusing, go back and watch the introduction, which will be linked to in the description below. Now, today we're going to dive into Batman and Robin, but one thing I will say is this video is probably going to involve more concentration and focus from you than anything else that we've covered in this entire series. It's surprisingly complicated to understand how and when Batman and Robin fits together, and there's a lot of pre-New 52 knowledge that you're going to need to put all that in context. I'm going to go through it bit by bit and slowly, and hopefully it'll all make sense. In 2007, superstar writer Grant Morrison was hired to write Batman. In doing so, one of his earliest moves was introducing a new fourth Robin. This was Damian Al Ghul, who comes to replace Tim Drake as Robin. Now this storyline continues up to an event called Final Crisis, which ends with Batman being supposedly dead. Remember, this all happened before the New 52. Following this story, DC launched a new series, still written by Grant Morrison, called Batman and Robin. In this series, Dick Grayson, who was the original Robin and had now become Nightwing, dons the cowl and becomes Batman, with Damian serving as his Robin. This series ran for 16 issues under Morrison, and that was collected in 3 volumes you can see here that I've been showing you, and also in an Absolute edition, which is a fantastic purchase and really good. Now, this is where it gets complicated. After issue 16, Morrison moved on to write a series called Batman Incorporated. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes' time, but remember that he did that. The important thing to realise that I'm mentioning now is that his Batman and Robin run did not finish when he left. A lot of people don't realise that. He wrote up until issue 16, and then issues 17 to 26 continued the stories through a rotating cast of writers and artists. Now, whilst the first 16 issues were collected in 3 volumes that I've already shown you, the last set of issues were collected in an often overlooked 4th volume called Dark Knight vs. White Knight. Now this collects issues 70 to 25, and so issue 26 actually never ever gets collected anywhere. That's what we call an orphaned issue. And like you can see from this picture, it's actually not a deluxe oversized hardcover, it's normal size. So whereas the first 3, written by Morrison, are oversized format, the 4th one, Dark Knight vs. White Knight, written by a range of people, is normal sized. Now, for those of you that have been purchasing the Grant Morrison Batman omnibuses, the 2nd volume, which I've shown you here, contains all 16 issues of Morrison's run on this Batman and Robin series. Do with that information what you will, but I will add a link to a review of the omnibus by a great YouTube channel called the Deluxe Edition in the description below. So why am I mentioning this? Well, when it comes to the New 52 Batman and Robin series, which is the 2nd volume, and that's volume with a big V, it starts back at issue 1. What that means is that the first volume of Batman and Robin, volume with a big V, was the one written by Grant Morrison and then that tailed off to random people. And now this is the new volume with a big V, and that's volume 2. Still a couple of things we need to do before we dive into the map. Firstly, I have to point out, it's written by Peter Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. Now, they did 3 issues of the pre-New 52 series we've just talked about. So they actually did 3 issues that were collected in that 4th collection, Dark Knight vs. White Knight, the undersized hardcover I showed you. Don't let it confuse you. A lot of people don't realise the first volume continued past Morrison's 16th issue, They see Dark Knight versus White Knight on a shelf. They see that it's written by Tomasi and Gleason, and they get really confused where it fits in. Hopefully this makes that clear. Secondly, there's one extra bit of Batman continuity that helps to know here. That is, before the New 52, Bruce Wayne was supposedly killed during Grant Morrison's run on the character. Now, whilst he came back eventually, this was only after 16 issues of Morrison writing Batman and Robin, and Bruce was then in another series called Batman Incorporated that ran parallel to that forgotten fourth collection, Dark Knight versus White Knight. And we're going to cover that in a second. There is a third reason I mention it, but I'm not going to do that now. Let's just jump into what we need to. So at this point, we should jump into this. And here is the world's most comprehensive DC New 52 reading order. So in terms of Batman and Robin, for those of you that have been following at home, if you scroll into the middle, you'll see Flashpoint there. And Batman and Robin, well, there's a Batman line on the thick black line in the middle. Batman and Robin is actually to the right of it or to the east of it, and it's actually the second series we're looking at. So you've got Nightwing there, which we're skipping today, and we're going to be going into Batman and Robin. Trust me, there's a reason I'm doing it like this, and it does make sense. So this is Batman and Robin from 2011 to 2015, written, as I said, by Peter Tomasi and drawn by Pat Gleason. It's critically acclaimed and deservedly so. It's excellent. It's available to buy in the standard paperback collections, the standard hardcover collections, and as an omnibus that I would not recommend getting. Why not? Well, I'll put a link of it in the description below, and that goes to a review of it by Gem Mint Collectibles. However, I would say you need to carry on watching this video and you'll see why I don't agree with getting that omnibus. So this is volume 1, Born to Kill. It contains issues 1 to 8. It's great. As we follow up, here we have the second volume, this one here, which is called volume 2, Pearl. It contains issues 9 to 14 and issue 0, and issue 9 is the usual irrelevant Night of the Owls crossover we've become familiar with. Now as you scroll up, you get to this. This is volume 3. This is called Death of the Family. As I mentioned in the first Batman video, video 5.1, quite a lot of these third volumes are actually called Death of the Family, which can be quite confusing. However, this volume works great by itself and also great as a companion read to the central Batman Death of the Family volume. It does tie into the Death of the Family crossover event, and it is included in the event book, and you can just read those. However, the final Batman issue for that crossover, which is Batman 17, is collected here in this volume, and it works perfectly well as a standalone read. I would highly recommend picking it up. I thought it was great. It's all good. Now what you'll notice here is that line actually doesn't carry on. There's a substantial gap here before we go to our next collection. And the reason for that is that before reading volume 4, we're going to have to take a detour, which is why I've made this weird line that sticks out the side here. And in particular, when we make that detour, what we need to read is this, which is Batman Incorporated volume 2 from 2011 to 2013. So this is where my earlier history lesson comes in. Remember I said after Morrison stepped away from the original series of Batman and Robin, he moved on to Batman Incorporated. Well, that was collected here as Batman Incorporated Volume 1. Make a note of the cover, and that's Volume 1 with a big V. It contains 8 non-essential issues you do not need to read, and then it gets hit by Flashpoint. What that means is that this Batman Incorporated Volume 1 is set before the New 52 and isn't on the map that I've made. And remember, whilst this series was being released, assorted writers and artists were continuing Morrison's abandoned Batman and Robin run. So, what happened? Flashpoint hit, and Morrison had to continue writing Batman Incorporated in the New 52. However, because of the whole renumbering thing that the New 52 did, that had to be referred to as the second volume, volume with a big V. Now, this is a source of huge confusion amongst fans, so I'm going to be as clear as possible here. Volume 1 is collected here in this picture that you can see, and that's the first volume with a big V. It's not in the New 52. The next volume with a big V for this series started straight away and was in the New 52 and started with a new issue 1 and was collected here on my map, as you can see, as 2 collected editions, Volume 1 and Volume 2. You can probably see why this is confusing for so many people. So this is what you need to read. Again, just to give you a recap, after you read Death of the Family, I would avoid reading Batman Incorporated volume with a big V1, because it's not necessary. you can jump straight into Batman Incorporated volume with a big V2. And what we have here is this run, which ran for a total of 13 issues, with 1 issue 0 and 1 special one-shot. The first collection is called Volume 1 Demon Star. This is the cover, that's what it looks like. And then Volume 2 is Gotham's Most Wanted. They're both available in nicely branded New 52 paperbacks and hardcovers at the appropriate size and height to fit in with your collection. They're well worth reading. Before I forget, I need to point out that confusingly this has been collected as a single absolute format here. This comic collects both volumes with a big V of Batman Incorporated. In other words, it collects the original 8 issues set before the New 52 and Flashpoint, and then the 13 issues from the New 52 plus various extras. I would not buy this myself. I mean, I did, and I regretted it, as the pre-New 52 part of the story is a mess and totally unnecessary. However, if you would like to buy it in this format, you can do so. Now, for those of you that have been purchasing the Grant Morrison Batman omnibuses, at the time of making this video, a 3rd volume of Morrison's Batman has not yet been solicited. However, it is very likely to contain all of Batman Incorporated. Do with that information what you will. Again, I won't be getting it as I prefer the consistency of having all my New 52 in standard size hardcovers. Now, because the New 52 Batman and Robin series, which is what we're discussing, remember, had been published at the same time as Morrison finished Batman Incorporated, it's important to note that there is a huge plot development here in these 2 volumes, which has a massive impact on the Batman and Robin series. There are a lot of behind the scenes rumours over why Morrison did this that you might want to read, but it's not for me to talk about all that. What I want to say is that it meant that Peter Tomasi was left picking up the pieces in the next collection of Batman and Robin, which you should now read. So if we look at that, we've got our 2 volumes of Incorporated here. Let's follow that line up, and then we will see in just a moment, yep, it pivots back, and what we have here is volume 4 of Batman and Robin, which is called Requiem for Damian. This is a great volume. It contains issues 18 to 23. Interestingly, this is the start of a new trend for the series where they start calling each individual issue something different. So for example, instead of Batman and Robin, we have Batman and Batgirl, or Batman and the Red Hood. Don't let this confuse you. If you're picking it up in single issues, it will confuse you because they all have these random titles, but just be aware of it and be conscious of what you're looking for the particular issue you want. I mean, it goes as wide as stuff like Batman and Frankenstein and Batman and Aquaman, so you need to keep your eyes peeled for that. So right next to volume 4, up here we've got volume 5, which is called The Big Burn. This is a very strange turn for the series, as it feels like a standard Two-Face and Batman story, and it really is very mediocre. Every issue from 24 up to 28 is rebranded as Batman and Two-Face, and it also contains annual 2 of the series as well as issues 24 to 28. It's not only that I wouldn't recommend collecting it, I wouldn't even recommend reading it. It's clear at this point that Tomasi is trying to find a direction for this series without Robin actually being in it, and he's failing. It's another reason why I wouldn't really pick up the omnibus, as it would contain these issues which would just be really weird. Let's continue scrolling up and we get to volume 6, which is called The Hunt for Robin. It contains issues 29 to 34 and Robin Rises Omega. Remember, several of these have odd names like Batman and Aquaman and things like that, so keep your eyes peeled. It's generally really good though and continues the series on smoothly from the 4th volume. You can skip volume 5, this just goes straight after number 4. Let's continue and we get to the end of this series. So this is volume 7, Robin Rises. It contains issues 35 to 40, a one-shot called Robin Rises Alpha, not to be confused with the one-shot in the last volume, Robin Rises Omega, and it also includes Batman and Robin Annual 3. Ends this series really well right up to the convergence line, which you will see is above it here. If I can, where is it? There it is. That's the convergence line. And so hopefully you followed all that, and you can now see that this is why I don't recommend the omnibus. I think reading in the order I've outlined, in the slimmer paperback or hardcover collections, allows you to read Batman Incorporated, as you can see here, which otherwise is not collected in the omnibus. And not having it in the omnibus makes it really confusing, as this huge plot twist, absolutely massive plot twist, happens off screen as it were. Also, not having the omnibus means you don't actually get the god-awful volume 5 in your collection. Similarly, I wouldn't really recommend getting the Batman Incorporated run in the omnibus or absolute versions for the same reasons. Whether or not you want the pre-New 52 Batman and Robin run written by Grant Morrison in either of these formats is totally up to you. But hopefully this has given you a little bit of an idea as to why reading Batman and Robin is not a straightforward matter. Now, at this point, we're going to move on. You'll notice, obviously, this being the last volume, there's still a line coming out of it. So we're going to follow that line going up, past the convergence line, and we get here. Now, a lot of people don't realise this, but there was a sort of an indirect sequel to Batman and Robin that a lot of people forget about. This is called Robin, Son of Batman. It was released from 2015 to 2016. It's written mostly by Pat Gleason and drawn by a variety of artists. So Gleason was the artist on Batman and Robin, remember, not the writer. And as such, when you're reading this, you'll notice that. This series isn't as good as its predecessor, but it's still worth looking at. So what we have here is Volume 1, called Year of Blood. It contains issues 1 to 6 and is quite good. Gleason wrote all of this. And then we have here, right at the end of it, final circle on this line, is Volume 2, Dawn of the Demons, which contains issues 7 to 13 and is also quite good. Issue 7 is part of a crossover called Robin War, which I'm going to cover in the next video, but not today. And Gleason wrote some of that, but it also had other writers and artists on it too. So this this Robin Son of Batman series is generally okay, and I was on the fence with buying it after I read it. However, I've since collected it in the 2 hardcovers, and I found that there are certain elements introduced here which recur in the DC Rebirth series Super Sons, which I really enjoyed and got the omnibus for. So I would, if I was you, I would consider this short series, Robin Son of Batman, as connecting tissue between Batman and Robin and Super Sons. So that was a lot to take in, wasn't it, guys? Right, so there's Robin Son of Batman. Let's scroll down. We get a bit more Batman and Robin, and then it has a little bit where it diverges. You've got Batman Incorporated there, and then at the bottom you've got generally more useful Batman and Robin stuff. Quite a lot. So that's the end of this video, though, which was a deep dive into this particular series. Quite a slog, but as you can see, there's no other way I could have done this and missed any of that out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, please like, comment, subscribe, share more widely. I'm always interested to hear your thoughts on the New 52. I'd love to know what you think of this video. Did that make sense in terms of Batman and Robin? Because there's a lot of nuance that a lot of people there don't realise. Let me know in the comments below, or tweet me at @IamThomasJudge. And as always, these videos are only possible thanks to you supporting this channel, so please head over to Amazon.com and pick up the first episode of my prose novel, No Gods or Kings. The link's in the description below. It's over 200 pages long and available for less than $1. And it's a series of interviews from a future where superpowers are real and the entire world is completely changed as a result. If you've got Kindle Unlimited, for example, the first volume is already completely free. For those of you that are interested in downloading the map and infographic I've created here, that's also available on my website, nogodsorkings.com, which is in the description below. So whilst you're there, why not pick up the first book and support the channel. Until next time, stay classy.